What's up, Steelers fans? Welcome back to another episode of Around the Burgh, our first, ostensibly, pre-playoffs episode with the Steelers defeating the Ravens 16-13 in overtime. Assuming that there is no disgrace of Dijon in the Raiders-Chargers game tonight, the Steelers are going to the playoffs inexplicably. I'm your host, Mitchell Wolf, here with my co-host Shane Kubis. Shane, how you doing tonight?
Better than I expected to be. I mean, we kind of we've mentioned it in the past that we weren't really sure if this team deserved to be in the playoffs or really had much of a chance.
Well, we were sure they didn't deserve to be in the playoffs.
Yeah,
we weren't sure if they'd make it,
right,
and we were definitely not sure if we really wanted them to make it.
Yeah, and I can't help but be happy, obviously, that they did. Even though it might not be the best thing long term for this team, but realistically, assuming that we'll talk more about it throughout the week as well. But assuming things go the way we expect them to in that playoff game, it won't make that much of a difference, most likely overall.
No.
But it's the fact that we made it at all with the circumstances is just kind of insane.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know this team is not good. They in terms of just a general overall outlook on the team, this team does not look like a playoff team. With 6 teams in the playoffs, they wouldn't make it, which I think is very fair. But
yeah,
they won games down the stretch. The Colts didn't. We'll talk about the Colts first because they went to Jacksonville, but Jacksonville's the worst team in the NFL, and Colts got the game handed to them for an entire game by the Jaguars, who had fans in clown outfits in their stadium, and they just bounced them out of the playoffs by making them look like absolute fools, which was incredible.
Yeah, that was the part of it where and we talked about it too here on the preview show for this game, that asking the Jaguars to beat the Colts in this situation wasn't something I expected to happen, or either of us expected to happen. But again, they haven't won in Jacksonville since 2014.
Yeah.
And something about playing there seems to mess that team up. And obviously the Colts haven't been a powerhouse during most of that time or anything like that. So, an unexpected loss here, there's one thing. But this was a team that literally there's just winning in. It wasn't like they had to worry about anything else. They weren't playing that. Let's just beat the Jaguars, who've beat all of 2 teams all year, and you're in. And they not only could they not do it, but they got stomped on their way to not getting into the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, it was 23-3 at one point. It was never really close. I mean, the scores can look better because the Jaguars or the Colts got some late scores, but it was never close.
No.
Carson Wentz just completely imploded, had 6 turnovers, something insane. Just completely blew the game for them, which was wild. And then, yeah, like we said, the Steelers somehow found a way to win. I mentioned the disgrace of Dijon, which Shane mentioned last episode. And it was basically a case in a soccer match where the 2 teams needed to tie in or something, and they basically just kind of kicked the ball around for the entire match.
For the entire time, yeah.
I have this in the rundown. Have you ever heard of the Barbados 4 Grenada 2 game?
I don't think so.
Okay, so in this game, essentially, what happened, and I'm reading from the game's Wikipedia page, this was a qualification round for the Caribbean Cup in 1994.
Okay.
So due to an unusual scoring rule and the 2 teams' respective positions in the tournament, it became alternately in the best interest of each team to score an own goal. So basically what happened, so the organizers of the tournament had imposed a rule requiring all matches to have a winner. And this was enforced with an unusual variant of the golden goal rule. The first goal scored in extra time not only won the match, but was also worth 2 goals. Barbados started the match needing to win by a margin of at least 2 goals to qualify for the final tournament, and after Grenada scored late in normal time to bring the scoreline to 2-1, Barbados deliberately scored an own goal to force extra time, where they could get the 2-goal winning margin they needed courtesy of the golden goal rule.
I have heard of that now. That sounds familiar, yeah.
So essentially, Grenada was trying to score on either goal, and somehow Barbados defended them both, and they won.
That's pretty hilarious.
Which isn't as bad as the Raiders-Chargers game tonight, which there does need to be a win or loss in that game for the Steelers to make the playoffs. And
yes,
I mean, frankly, if that game ends in a tie, that just makes us even funnier.
Yeah, I won't be upset about it.
No.
Because one, if we get in, it's only because of everyone else managing to screw up and not because of anything we really did. But realistically, if they do tie fairly, if it's one of those things we could tell both teams are really trying their hardest and it gets to overtime and nobody can score any points, then fine. Good for those 2 teams. They'll be in the playoffs. They can figure out what they're going to do from there. But it's obviously not very likely. I mean, we've had 5 ties in the current overtime rules period since 2017 is something I found out today. and that was just games, and that was out of 67 overtimes. So even that percentage is low, let alone all games.
Yeah.
So likely not getting one of those.
I feel like if they do go to overtime, it's just going to be like absolutely and somebody even might win, but if they just go to overtime, it's going to be nuts. People
people are going to be
crazy.
losing them. And they'll be like, Neil, now it's time. Now you should kneel.
Yeah. I think once you get like under 2 minutes, then you're like, all right, just kneel it.
Yeah, at this point now we can just go home.
Exactly.
And we'll go back and get ready for the playoffs. So
exactly. All right, so let's get actually into the game. So when we recorded our preview episode, we said that Deontay Johnson and Joe Hayden will be out due to COVID, and eventually they came back off the COVID list.
Yep.
And I think and then Kendrick Green also came off the list, and James Washington got put on the list. So a lot of moving pieces there, which was hard to follow, honestly.
I was just like, I'm just gonna wait and see who plays at this point. Like, I'm not gonna worry about it too much.
Right. But the story of the game was real, which from a Steelers perspective, and the frustrating one is that the Steelers really just wanted to run the ball, even though the Ravens are the best run defense in the league by yardage, and they still kept doing this. After Najee Harris went down with a hand or wrist injury. So I didn't really know what to make of that. Maybe you have some thoughts on it.
Well, all I can tell you is that I spent a lot of time tweeting the same type of thing over and over again from the Steelers ATB account of just, why are we running the football right now? And again, I understand, like, you don't want to just sit back there and throw the ball every time with a 39-year-old quarterback, right? You have to at least give them something to worry about a little bit. But it was the second and long runs and the first down. I'm like, what are we like? Give us a chance to get the ball moving a little bit. If we get into a second and short situation, maybe you run a shotgun run, try to get a couple yards to get the first down and reset the chains. That's fine. But this game was never going to be, let's run it down the Ravens' throats. It was never going to be that. And yet they treated it like that for majority of the game.
Yeah,
and
I'm going to pivot.
It hurt them a lot.
I'm going to pivot this a little to kind of a college football thing. Is that basically, like, when you think about Alabama and Georgia, they both run basically the same defense, and it's kind of similar to what the Ravens run in a few ways. But the point is that when those two teams played each other, they weren't necessarily just trying to run the ball down each other's throats because they knew it wouldn't work, because those defenses are predicated against stopping the run with big dudes. And both of those teams have pretty good offensive lines at the college level. And so in those games they pass, and I expect them to pass in the game tomorrow.
Yeah.
This was not one of those cases where the Steelers were like, oh, we're just going to keep trying to run the ball against this team that's very good at stopping, which just didn't make any sense to me. And it's further proof that I really hope that Matt Canada is not long for this job as offensive coordinator.
Yeah, I can't imagine he is. And, we'll talk more, especially since now we're going to have to wait a little longer probably to talk about the offseason and everything. Once we get into that part of the season, we'll start talking about all of that stuff. But for the time being, I tweeted at one point, I said literally I'm begging someone to go and remove Canada from the building after, like, especially once it got down to crunch time. And I'm like, okay, he cannot be a part of whatever it is we're doing at this point. He can't. And this is why. Like, it's stuff like this where most people who have even a solid grasp of the game will sit there and look at what he does and just say, that's not what you should be doing.
Yeah, like
that's what frustrates me.
On a 3rd and 1, they ran a weak side zone play against the Ravens when they were expecting a run play. It's just like, what is this? Like, why are we just ramming our heads into walls with play calls that just don't make any sense, and out of formations with personnel that don't make any sense? But that will digress, because the offense was not doing well despite the defense getting a lot of turnovers early. Some of them relatively lucky. But, TJ gets this, quote, sack when the snap is bad, but he's able to force the fumble regardless of what you call the tackle. That gives the Steelers short field to get a field goal. The next drive, Huntley throws a decently bad interception to Terrell Edmonds.
Yeah, just
Steelers can't really get anything off that. The Ravens have a failed fake punt. Steelers can't do anything with that. It's just more like the entire first half was the first half performances that we've come accustomed to this last month and a half or so.
Right, and that's what's so just frustrating is, like, every game is the same, right? It seems like every single game we run through this script of, like, all right, well, we're going to try to commit to the run, and we're going to try to do the short passing, and we're going to try to do the screen game, which is I don't know what the numbers are. I don't care to look them up. We're the worst screen team in the NFL. It doesn't matter. Like, we might not be. I really don't know, but we are either way. Just
I saw somebody once tweet that about their team, and then a few minutes later they're like, "All right, I got flooded with Steelers comments. I think I might be wrong," which was really funny.
Like, if a whole fan base knows that you're bad at screens, then you're bad at screens, right? So, but it's just all this. I'm like, we know this isn't going to work, and that's what frustrates me. Is like, there's no reason for us to believe that it will, and yet we continue to go to it.
Yeah.
And that to me just shows either a lack of effort or a lack of understanding of what you're doing at your position, and then that's from Canada at the end of the day.
Yeah, so in the first quarter, there were more turnovers than points.
Yeah.
And there were 7 consecutive punts in the at some point in the first half. And at another point, TJ Watt got the sack record, but they wiped it off the board with a questionable unnecessary roughness penalty on Cam Hayward, where he hit Tyler Huntley's shoulder with his helmet. So I just didn't get that. We'll come back to the officiating later. But eventually the Ravens running attack finally broke through. They got a big run from Latavius Murray where he had a 46-yard touchdown and just, hit the hole and was gone. Nobody could catch him.
Yeah.
Which that's again another theme. I thought for the most part, aside from that and I think 1 or 2 like Huntley broken plays, I thought they honestly did a good job stopping him for most of the game, especially in some big key situations.
Yeah, just a lot of soft, that's the whole problem is the run defense has been really soft for most of the year. And their rushing numbers look fantastic if you look at it from a total yard standpoint and everything. But there was a lot of clutch run defensive plays opposed to just shutting them down though. So.
Yeah, this is one where the box score really won't tell you the story.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And I think a lot of it was due to the fact that they kept having to come on the field super quickly and they were just getting tired.
Yeah,
and this is, in my opinion, this was the worst weather to play football in, where it's not freezing, but it's cold and it's raining. That's the worst because
it's bad.
Yeah. So that doesn't help at all. But like I said, they're able to get some key stops. The Steelers offense still can't really do anything in the third quarter. They do get a field goal, but that's about it. But the Ravens have a big drive. They get down into the low red zone, and then Cam Sutton makes a huge interception.
Yeah, huge.
With I think Huntley was forcing a pass to Mark Andrews again, which was a big theme of this, which I still think that, Mark Andrews, this was one of his better games, but I think he's a double agent, honestly.
Doesn't it feel like it? Because every year, since he's been there, he'll have, because he's been fantastic for them since he's gotten there. But every time they play the Steelers, something weird happens with him, or just whether it's the drops that he had in the first game, even though he had a good game overall, and this game we had really good yardage totals and everything, but just every time it seemed like when they targeted him on big downs, third down especially.
I think the Edmonds interception, and then there was another play at the very end of the game that was very similar.
Yeah,
where Edmonds almost had the same exact interception, he was sliding on the ground. I think Andrews was the target there too, which was pretty interesting. But yeah, he's a very interesting player to me in this rivalry.
Yeah, for sure.
But so that kind of gave the Steelers life, because Ben puts together an awesome drive a few drives later.
Finally, yeah.
Yeah, where it takes up a lot of the fourth quarter. He's hitting all these clutch passes, a lot of them to Freiermuth, who had an awesome game.
He did, yes.
With his run after the catch. There was at one point where I think they had a 3rd and 1. And I was like, honestly, just put Freiermuth at running back and just see what happens.
Honestly, especially with Harris being dinged up. Yeah. I mean, no offense to Benny Snell. He had a couple nice runs in this game, honestly. And his best called back. Yeah, that
sucked.
Oh, that was awful. I'm like, Benny finally made a play in the passing game.
That was better than Najee's stiff arm.
It was. It was awesome stiff. And then of course it doesn't count for anything. I'm like, dang it.
That sucked. Yeah, that was really tough to have happen. So Ben leads this awesome drive. They do get a touchdown to Claypool with a perfect slant pass. The Ravens get the ball back with a few minutes left. They go down and tie the game with a field goal. And Ben has about a minute left. They get to the Ravens 41 and they get 4th and 1 and they decide to punt. Now, what are your thoughts on this?
So I tweeted specifically that because of who they're playing, I do understand to a certain extent why you don't go for it there, because unlike against most teams, they pretty much do not have to do anything to have a chance at a field goal, right? Still cowards to do it, right?
Fair.
That was my thought. It was basically I would have gone for it because of the situation, right? You're already getting so much help from the rest of the league to have a chance to the playoffs. I'm playing with house money at this point. I'm going for it. But as we found, as we saw, it did end up working out, but the numbers typically would tell you to go for it there, just from an analytics standpoint. I don't think that's factoring in the fact that Justin Tucker is the opposite kicker, but maybe that makes it more of a true 50-50 call on that, but I still felt like it was a cowardly kind of call there.
So there's a Twitter bot that I follow that does the calculations for this, and I quote tweeted it because the analytics. The analytics tell you.
Yeah,
The
whatever.
formula basically said that by going for it, you would increase your win probability by 17.6%, which is an astronomical amount in terms of these situations. Yeah, like normally it's like a go for it is like 4%,
right,
or even like 2%. 17.6 is insane.
It's a lot.
Right. So like I believe in all that stuff, but I definitely agree with you about the Tucker thing, because if they turn the ball over, assuming they get 0 yards, that's a 58-yard kick for Tucker. If the Ravens don't get another yard, which is pretty makeable for him.
Yeah, that's not.
And if they get let's say they just get 5 yards, 53 is money for Tucker. Even in
might as well
terrible
be a
weather.
30-yard field goal for him.
Yes. So on that hand, I get it. Additionally, the Steelers were not running the ball between the tackles very well.
No, they couldn't go to a traditional call in that situation. Yeah. Like, I wouldn't have anyway, but still,
and Ben is missing some passes. It's not good weather, so throwing the ball is not a great option either. So I do get it. And Tomlin got bailed out again by this. Like, he's done this before.
Yep.
And maybe that is. And I think the other thing is, like, our friend Brandon, who does the Around the Flock podcast, just said, "I'm here to support you as individuals, but I'm upset and frustrated." So shout out to Brandon. We're sorry to end your season, but not really.
Yeah, not really though.
but yeah, I mean, he gets bailed out by these, and I think the other part is, like, he's like, okay, like, I can either trust my offense, who has been terrible for the majority of the season, or I can trust my defense to get a stop in a passing situation where they've been fantastic this season. I'm going to trust my defense, which I totally get the analytics. Yeah. I would have liked to see them go for it, but I totally get why they didn't, based on a lot of other factors. But that's a very interesting play call. It does end up working because they force the Raven to punt. Minka makes a fantastic pass breakup against Marquise Brown on the sideline.
One of his best plays as a Steeler, frankly.
Yeah, I think probably his best play that wasn't an interception, in my mind, because if he just tackles him, that's a huge gain. But he has the presence of mind to punch with his hand to get the ball out, and it's a perfectly timed. So huge play there. They force the Ravens to punt, and they go to overtime. And this kind of reminded me of when this happened in 2018, where they wanted the Ravens to get the ball first because they trusted their defense to get a stop, and the defense did just that.
Yep.
The Ravens do get some yards on the ground, but then they force Huntley to miss 2 passes that were pretty woefully inaccurate, and they force a punt.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just why, like, I honestly, I think generally like not getting the ball first in overtime, because especially if you trust your defense, which the Steelers do, then you could just like, all right, either we get a stop. If we force a field goal, then we know what we need to do, or we lose the game, and it is what it is.
Yeah, to a certain extent, like you said, I think that if you're the right type of team that knows that your defense has a pretty solid shot of at least forcing them to kick a field goal at the worst, right? Then getting the ball second in overtime is not really a big deal for you. You're not stressed about that. But so many teams are not in that situation, so it feels like kind of like I would have still rather had the ball just to have a chance to end it. But with the way our offense was playing, I can't really argue with the idea that maybe it would have been best to, as we found out, have the ball second.
Yeah. So the Steelers get the ball, and I mean, Ben just continues dealing. Like, he's just hitting all these, like, and none of these are like deep passes, of course, but good passes along the sideline. I think that was that the drive where he hit that like perfect out route to Deontay on 3rd and I want to say 8, or was that the other touchdown drive?
I think that perfect out route to Deontay. I think that was the last drive. I'm pretty sure.
Okay. So 3rd and 9 at their own 46, he hits a out route to Deontay for 11 yards, which was perfectly placed.
Yeah, it was a great throw.
And so then they keep driving. They come to a 3rd and 9 or 4th and 9 after 2 drops by Ray, which was a tough catch, and then Deontay, which was an easier catch. He should have played his hands differently, which confused me.
I don't know.
But anyways, so then on 4th and 9, they throw this quick pass to Ray McLeod, who picks up the first down and gets them basically into field goal range for Boz. So
that was the play. Like, that was because that was the situation where on 4th and I'm like, I don't even know what they want to do here, because just like anything past 5 yards is a questionable thing for them on a money down this year. But like going to Ray, like, as much as we've talked about him being like a surprise this year, I'm not that surprised they went to him in that situation, because Deontay was starting to kind of have his little drop issues that he's had. And like, if you're not going to go to Muth, maybe he is the second guy comfortable.
Did he have another huge catch? Or am I
imagining the big catch where he should have probably gotten a penalty call because he got hit in the helmet.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That was on the touchdown drive. Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah. That's right. Yeah, because he got. I mean, he was defenseless receiver over the
He just
middle,
got
and
destroyed, but he
30
hung
just
on to it
crushed his
ever
helmet
so.
right into him. They didn't call it, which was insane.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I don't know about that, but
yeah. I
good game for him for sure.
This is a comment from again our friend Brandon, and I'm interested by this because this is something Ben typically struggles against,
Yeah.
and it's not like Ben um, is the most cerebral quarterback, which we've talked about a lot. I mean, he did have a
Not
really dumb
exactly.
interception early in the game,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I'm wondering if this is what the Chiefs will do. I I probably tend to think not because they do have better defenders in terms of man, just because they have starters available,
Yeah.
and I mean, they're going to want to blitz Ben. I'm not sure if they actually will. But I think that'll be interesting to monitor to see how much zone they throw at Ben, because that is where Ben struggles more, because especially if they rotate late and kind of mix it up, he struggles to read it. And with his arm, he's not going to beat tight window throws,
That's the problem. Is like I feel like playing zone against him is just a safer way to do it, because even though the likelihood of getting beat deep in man coverage isn't great with this team right now,
Mm-hmm.
it's still more likely than Ben. You're still more likely to give that up than a play with Ben in zone coverage, because you're more likely to throw it into coverage in his case.
Yeah. So they go on this drive, they pick up the first down with Ray, then they get a big run from Najee, who has Claypool basically lead blocking for him on the edge.
I was scared on that play because I saw Chase kind of like stop for a second, and I'm like, oh, please don't just stand there. And then he figured it out. Like it's like
Chase,
the controller turned on and off for a second, then he
Chase had a really good game too.
He did, yeah.
He had
really
the
did,
the touchdown. Obviously, he led the Steelers in rushing for what it's worth.
Yeah,
on those jet sweeps.
That's really more of an indictment on the Steelers than it is him. But
well,
still,
and
still
Najee being hurt as well.
That doesn't help, no.
Yeah, but he had some good catches too, so I'll give him
Mhm.
credit for having a good game, good blocking as well. And so they get that run, and they give Boswell a pretty easy kick to make, and he makes it. Steelers win the game. Ben moves into sole possession of the second most game-winning drives all time at 67, right behind, I believe it's Brady, of course. So
I thought it was Manning.
Oh, it is Manning. Okay, yeah, because Brady's they're always just ahead, so it doesn't matter.
I think it was Manning actually, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
All right. Well, regardless, he's now solely in possession of second, which is great.
Yeah.
His final regular season game, possibly his final game overall, if the unthinkable happens later tonight.
Yeah, which I mean, I don't want to like completely say that it won't happen, obviously, because that just feels like a way to end up having it happen. But
which is, again, not the worst outcome, so I don't really care.
No, it's not the worst thing in the world. I am wondering, like, how funny would it be? Like, they won't do it, obviously, but how funny would it be if the first play the Raiders just like knelt and then played the game normal after that, just to freak people out for like 10 seconds? Because Twitter would explode for like about 2 minutes, and then it's like, oh, they're doing it. Yeah, well, I saw Jacobs rush for 8 yards the first play, so it's not going to happen.
All right, never mind. They're good. They're trying. Very good.
They're trying at least.
This is truly the most applicable time where you can say, I just want both teams to have fun.
Right? Yeah, honestly.
I really just want them both to have a good time and win the game. Somebody win.
Exactly. Somebody win the game.
Yeah. So I want to get into some storylines as now the Steelers are ostensibly going to be in the playoffs. There are some storylines moving forward. We talked a lot about Canada being bad, forcing runs at the middle. Line is banged up. He can't really scheme wide receivers open, and they're gonna have to go against the Chiefs again. Now, I think that the last game against the Chiefs, they had a lot of fluky plays that kind of took them out of it. Like some weird turnovers, and the Chiefs were on fire that game regardless. So I have to think that it might be a little closer.
Yeah, I mean, I just the law of averages, you probably don't get beat by 24 consecutive times.
Yeah.
But this is the Chiefs, and they are rolling compared to where they were in the beginning of the season. So I really think it comes down to just one. We need to be able to run the football, period. Like that's it's something that has to happen because one, it helps you keep the Chiefs from having the football. And two, if you have to just drop back with Ben every play, they're going to kill him. It just is like they're going to be able to get pressure on him with whether it's blitzing or everything else. Like they either have to have the receivers win consistently outside, which they have not done outside of Deontay for the most part, or again, the running game is going to have to come alive and actually give us a chance to sustain drives.
Yeah. The other, and this is kind of a storyline just for this game, is that the officiating was very questionable in my mind because the Ravens were called for one penalty. The Steelers were called for 6. A lot of them seemingly in very key situations, including I think at least 3 false starts on third downs, a face mask penalty on an offensive lineman, the Hayward hit that was called, the not called hit on McLeod. You know, there's obviously all the not called holdings on the Ravens against TJ, who had an awesome game despite being double teamed for the vast majority of it. Yeah, just a weird, especially because the Ravens are penalized more and for more yards than the Steelers. Just a weird game in that sense for me, at least.
Yeah, I mean, some of the calls were just very clearly like, I'm not sure what we're doing here type of things. You know, others were more, you know, could go either way, but especially the Hayward one where it's like, I understand like the way it looked live, like Huntley's head cocked back after the hit and everything else, but like Cam didn't make contact with his head, and they said, like they said,
helmet hit his shoulder,
area, but like it was a hit in the shoulder, and it was because he was getting hit by TJ on the.
Yeah,
it would have been a lower hit if TJ hadn't already made contact with him.
Yeah,
it wasn't like he was targeting his helmet or anything.
Yeah, so that was very frustrating. Again, the defense was awesome. We talked about it, like basically, like as long as the offense can. I mean, this is what the offense does. So it's part of the problem is that if they just keep having these stretches where they just keep punting and punting and punting without giving the defense a rest, this defense just eventually breaks down against the run, and that's a major issue.
Yeah, and that's not going to change. Like it's something that the offense has to understand that if they're going to give the defense a chance to actually make plays and not just kind of survive like they have in a lot of games, they have to sustain drives. You know, it doesn't mean that you have to score every drive, obviously, but we can't have so many quick 3-and-outs and drives go absolutely nowhere nearly as often as we did in this game or just in general the last 2 years, really, honestly.
Yeah, and a big part of that, I think, like you said, it comes from passing the ball earlier, not just running kind of for the sake of running on early downs. I thought it was interesting also that Steelers waived Isaiah Buggs.
Yeah, that was something that I guess apparently, from what I understand, he just wanted another opportunity somewhere else because he felt like he wasn't getting enough playing time, and they basically honored his request. As Thomas says, we like volunteers on hostages, so I guess that's part of it. So.
Yeah, I mean, he's been hurt a lot, and so I think that kind of was the big reason why he wasn't playing.
Right, but still.
So, and they've been having Carlos Davis being active the last few weeks, but so they've been basically going into all these games pretty empty-handed on the defensive line. Luckily, guys like Cam and Cam, obviously, but
I think Adams was one of the ones that was mentioned as to why like he felt like he should be playing over him or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Well,
but
I mean, Adams
with his emergence, I think that Buggs kind of saw that his playing time probably wasn't going to be where it was. So.
Yeah, I mean, Adams and Loudermilk have both been quite solid in their short amount of time here, so I guess I'm okay with that. Presley Harvin returned to the lineup. And he had one really good punt and a few average ones that like were, what I liked is that they were in bounds and they were forcing fair catches, and then he had one really bad shank. So I'm very interested to see who gets the hat against the Chiefs. I have to think it's Waitman.
I hope so. And like I understand like giving Harvin the chance to kick this week just because he had missed time. It wasn't like they cut him or something.
Yeah,
but. If we're trying to actually win the game and give ourselves the best chance at playing the field position game if we need to, Waitman clearly showed more promise for that for sure.
Yeah, like and Waitman's punts just like in these few games, like they just cut through cold air like no problem.
Oh yeah, so he had no trouble whatsoever getting the ball down the field.
And I think he was the punter against Kansas City even. So
yeah, he was.
Yeah. So I think he should definitely be getting the hat.
I imagine so. Well, we'll see, but that would make sense.
So this last storyline is kind of just more about just the narrative of all this. Like this was just a great way for Ben to end his regular season career. Just, two basically game winning drives, essentially, one to go take the lead late, another one to get in position for a game winning field goal. And again, he was not good for the most part of the game. He had that bad interception. He was missing some easy throws, but those last few drives were just awesome. Like the one play, he like actually scrambled out of the pocket and hit a guy relatively short, but I mean, this was just vintage Ben, and it seemed like the guys were excited. Like there was video of Tomlin dancing on somebody's IG live, which is
that was so funny. That's so fun. Tomlin has to be just loving it right now, though, right? Yeah. Because like despite everything,
he's playing with house money,
right? Yeah. Despite everything this season, between Ben showing his age more than even I maybe expected him to, and Canada just being dog crap, and the defense.
He called the game on defense today.
Yeah, I know, and I'm sure he had a great time doing that too. But I don't know. Like you could tell like this team has nothing to lose, and I think that's going to make it fun for us. Going into the Chiefs game, I just hope they leave it all out there, right? Like, yeah, that's all I really care about. I honestly hope that I think this would just be good for our chances of actually winning the game if there is one. Canada just needs to sit there and be quiet for the last game of his Steelers career, most likely, and just let Ben and Tomlin and whoever else just do whatever they want. Just literally just we'll just do weird. Like, you got to almost treat it like some teams, like the Lions did against the Packers. Like, that's how you should treat it. Because realistically, we're not supposed to win that game. We're not expected to even be probably competitive in that game. Go out with a bang. Let Ben call the plays, or let players drop. I don't really care.
Let Josh Dobbs call the game.
Honestly, maybe that should be his. They should just let him do it just to see how it goes. And maybe
he's basically like assistant QB coach.
Might as well, yeah.
I mean, he knows the offense.
Honestly, just be like, listen, that's what Ben would go to in the news there. So why not let him do it? I don't care, but
that would be
just don't
awesome.
let it be Canada.
That would be so cool. Okay, so we'll get into our stars of the game. We'll be back later this week to break down the Chiefs matchup in full. If the Raiders and Chiefs or Raiders and Chargers, don't tie. So we'll get into our stars of the game. We'll do our honorable mentions first. We mentioned a lot of them. Najee Harris playing through a
arm injury,
which he was out for a lot because a lot of the reason was because he couldn't hold. He was unsure about how he could hold on to the ball. Yeah. And now he ends his rookie year leading the rookies in touches and 0 fumbles.
Which is unbelievable. There hasn't even been that very many close calls either.
No,
there's been a couple that I can remember where he was just down in the ball, but even then,
even no fumbles lost, just no fumbles, period. Which is
it's nuts, crazy.
Yeah. We mentioned Chase Claypool on those jet sweeps, including the one where Ben quote blocked.
I mean, that's what quarterbacks do on those plays. So I'm not.
Well, it's just funny to think of. It's also interesting about Ben is this was his first start was against the Ravens, and this was his last, and he lost that when he won this one, even though he was probably a better quarterback in 2004.
He was definitely a better quarterback in 2004. It's just he's more experienced now, but that experience only does you so much good.
Yeah, but yeah, that was a fun play. But Chase Clay, he had the touchdown to take the lead there. A bunch of clutch catches. No really boneheaded plays. So that's good. Let's see. Cam Sutton with the interception, like we said.
Yeah.
And Terrell Edmonds, who had a great game, 2 pass breakups and interception. Yeah. And I really hope they bring him back because he just works so well in this defense. I don't think they'll have to pay him so much because he's not the biggest playmaker, and strong safeties don't get paid that much. So I just really hope they're able to bring him back because he works so well with Minka.
I think that I'm thinking more and more likely that there's a good chance that they at least try to. I think that going into the season, they needed to see him play better than he has, but also it's going to come down to what kind of contracts is he offered, right? If he's getting up in that $9-10 million a year, which I don't think he will, then that starts to make you go, okay, maybe we don't do that when we're going to pay another safety here shortly. But if it's 5, 6, even maybe 7-ish a year, I'm comfortable with that because again, we know what we're getting out of him. He's been in the system for 4 years. He was a guy already that I didn't like the pick at the time mostly because I felt like he needed time.
I hated the pick at the time. Absolutely.
He needed time to develop, and luckily
it did take time. It did take time. Yeah.
Yeah, he has, but now it's are we going to see the fruits of that more than just a year or 2 of it? So
and he's so young.
He is. Because isn't he 25 or 24 right now?
Yeah, I'm looking it up. He's 24. He'll turn 25 in 2 weeks, basically.
Okay.
So
so he's
so you've got he is right in the middle of his prime. So sign him to a 3 or 4 year deal, and you're getting his best years, I would say.
I would say so. Yeah.
Yeah. So those are honorable mentions, but let's get into our actual stars of the game for our third star. Shane, who you got?
So for mine, I'm going to give it to Minka because one, he didn't make a ton of individual plays today, but he made maybe the biggest play of one of the biggest plays of the game, at least with that pass defense on the Brown catch on the sideline. That should have been a catch, but he was able to get over there and get the punch out, which was just awesome. One of his best plays as a Steeler, honestly. And also, a lot of those tackles that broke into the second and third levels of defense, he was the one who made the tackle. So, a lesser safety. I mean, some of them were down by the sideline, so it's not that hard. But a good amount of safeties take the wrong angle, and that's a touch, and those are big touchdowns. So, prevented a lot of possible points. So, big plays from him. I'm going to give my third star to Ray-Ray McCloud, who, he obviously has that big conversion. He had the big catch over the middle on third down on the touchdown drive. He had a drop or two. They talked about his mental toughness coming back from that. Yeah.
Some bad throws from Ben again. He was also a big weapon in the return game. It ultimately didn't matter a ton for the offense, but 3 kick returns for 66.
He gave him a shot, though.
Yeah, 3 kick returns for 66 yards, 2 punt returns for 29 yards. So a lot of good yardage there. I thought it was interesting that both teams were doing a lot of short kickoffs, and I was curious as to why that happened. That was weird. especially in like cold. I guess in cold weather, you're kind of hoping for a slip or something.
Maybe, yeah.
Rain. But that was kind of interesting deal that both teams were doing it, so that was odd for me. But I thought Raver was awesome today. Raver McLeod, wide receiver 1, always has been.
For sure. Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, seems like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll
All right. Who is your second star?
For me, I got to go with Pat.
Mm-hmm.
Like he especially in a few select games this year where they've actually gone to him consistently, he's proven to be that guy that's going to be the chain mover for this offense in the future, right? He doesn't always have a ton of targets. He doesn't always have a ton of yardage, but it seems like every time they go to him, whenever they really need either a first down or to really get back closer to getting a first down, he's the guy that Ben looks to, and I expect that to continue with whoever's next as well. And he showed all of those traits in this game.
Yeah, I mean, he had 9 targets, 6 catches, 53 yards, and I don't know the exact number, but he had 3 or 4 like first downs, like on key moments where like they needed it. Yeah, I mean, just so clutch with getting the necessary yards to keep the drives going. He's almost got that like George Kittle gene where it's just like, I'm gonna drag guys with me, and I just know where I need to get to when the time calls for it. So awesome game from him. I'm giving mine to Cam Hayward. 6 solo tackles, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss, 1 QB hit. Had arguably a better game than TJ.
For sure,
just because of how he was affecting the run defense, getting the backfield. Obviously the big sack, had the bad penalty, but I thought that was crap. But just affecting how an entire offense is able to play the game. And also he had a big save when Deontay had a pass caught down the sideline. He kind of corralled Deontay when he wanted to say something to defensive back and prevented big and taunting penalty. So big leadership from Cam there, which was awesome.
Always good to see that from him.
Yeah. All right. Our first stars are kind of chalk, but that's kind of the point of them. But I'll let you go first for yours.
I mean, we got to give it to Ben, right? I mean, he wasn't great by NFL quarterback standards in 2021 or 2022, I guess now, but he got it done at the end. I mean, really the only true like huge mistake that he made was the actual interception. And a couple other balls that could have been intercepted as well, but for the most part, 30 of 44. A lot of attempts, not as many yards. At least he had more yards in his last game where he had,
much better yards per attempt.
Exactly. It's still not good, but twice.
Hey, it was like at least twice as high as it was last game.
Yeah, he got the touchdown to Claypool, got the 2 clutch drives to go ahead and win the game. Again, like you said, kind of a vintage performance for him, at least based on our expectations of him now. So definitely going to be interesting to see. Again, we'll talk more about in the week, but can he do it again? Can we pull out another vintage performance from him this year?
Yeah, I'm not sure he can do it again next week, but here's hoping.
We'll find out.
But the other one we have to talk about is obviously TJ Watt. Yes. 3 solo tackles, a tackle for loss, 1 sack with an asterisk because he should have had more.
Yeah, realistically.
1 pass defense, 3 QB hits, tying the sack record, and 1 kick to the nuts from Tyler Huntley.
Yeah, that play, like when I saw it live, I'm like, I'm not sure, but I think TJ just got the Nutcracker special on that play.
Well, a lot of people were worried. It's like, oh my God, he re-injured his groin. Oh no. And
like, no,
he kind of did, but not the way you think.
But like, he'll be okay. He may not feel okay for a little while, but he's not injured, I don't think. So,
yeah,
that sucked to see.
But, he was. I mean, I'm not sure if PFF counts these, but the way he was double teamed I had to imagine was so frustrating for him because it would be like the tight end would get him like out, and then he would have to face the tackle separately. And I feel like that's almost more frustrating than facing 2 guys at the same exact time because you beat one guy, then you have to beat another guy in a whole completely different way. And on the sack that did get him to tie the record, that was an awesome rush. Just swimming by both guys with the same move. He was again being held multiple times, had a lot of pressure on the quarterback. So he didn't get the record officially. I can't imagine him not winning Defensive Player of the Year, with this performance after last week. Again, it's not about like, I posted the meme again, haha, sack record, go Burr, because this isn't like, the analytics perfection of like who is the most efficient pass rush. Like it is about all the again, it's not just about pass rush, it's about run stuffing, which he's huge on, affecting the way a team. The big thing was how he affected the game because the Ravens would do a lot of roll action, and it was always be away from TJ Watt, or they would be double or triple teaming him. So that affects how you do it, how you play your game. And he's again, like these are, you can say like coverage or effort sacks, but like somebody needs to get those, and those are huge, important plays. And he had that pass defense on 3rd down to force a field goal. He's just the guy that's making the biggest plays and the biggest moments for his team that keeps them in games. And in my mind, that is what the Defensive Player of the Year award is about.
Right. And like the other thing too, you have to keep in mind is like it's one thing where if he clearly was barely getting pressures and was just like converting all of them to sacks, like if there was clear like evidence that he wasn't impacting the game as much as the stats were to show, then it's one thing where I could listen to conversations about other guys being in there. But everything all lines up to where he is at the very least one of the 5 best defensive players on the field every week in the NFL. And his numbers that he's put up as part of that put him into the category of defensive player of the year at the end of the day, just regardless.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, that'll do it for us for this week. Like I said, we'll be back later in the week to preview the Steelers playoff matchup. If they make it, they should.
Yeah,
But in the meantime, Shane, let people know where they can find you and your work.
Find me at Shane Kubas on Twitter, as you see on the screen. Also follow at Steelers ATB, where we will be, hopefully, like you said, barring something crazy tonight, be tweeting during the Chiefs Steelers game next week here. Really, other than that, just follow anything Steelers, ATB related, anything ATB related in general as well.
Yep, absolutely. Make sure you're following Around the Block on YouTube, on Twitch, following Steelers ATB. I'm at Mitchell T. Wolf, WOLFE on Twitter. You can follow me there for a lot of my scouting content, which is coming out soon as we kind of get into draft season. Like this comment says, we're off to Kansas City, ideally, again.
Ideally,
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We hope to have you back next time.